Hey there, it's Patrick, the host and producer of Self-Control, How to Build a Better Life. I just want to start this episode by thanking you, the viewer, and you, the listener. Recently crossed over 400 subs on YouTube. The episode on marijuana, how I quit marijuana, has over 2,000 views. On the audio side of things, we recently crossed over 11,000 downloads all time. That's in less than a year. And as well, in audio land, I had a couple episodes cross over the 200 download mark and a few more over the 100 download mark. So thank you. If you've been listening and watching this show, if you've subscribed on the YouTube, if you're a daily or regular listener over on Spotify or Apple, thank you very much. This means that, my message is getting out, and it's a message that is one of hope, and it's one of trying to assist people. And it's also something I hope inspires people to talk about their own issues and to reflect on their issues and to not be afraid of their problems and to see those problems as one of invitation to get to know yourself better. So again, thank you if you've been listening and watching. I really think that if that's you, then you're getting in on the ground floor of something that's going to be really special, something that's going to grow, something I hope will be a community, something I hope we could one day maybe even get together in person and discuss our problems. Wouldn't that be interesting? Discuss our growth. So with that said, anybody who's listening or watching this podcast is always invited to get in touch with me on Facebook, on Instagram. Maybe you've got some issue in your life, and I'm not trying to be some kind of newspaper columnist who's going to solve your problems as we used to have in the old days. I'm just saying, if there's an issue in your life you'd like to talk about, we can, of course, keep your identity secret. But I think that I'm trying to talk about real life issues, and no doubt you have them, and maybe you want some feedback on them. And it's good fodder. It's good content for myself. And I really hope that without exploiting you, maybe we could talk a little bit about it. So if you have a question you want answered, please get in touch on Facebook or Instagram. If you have a story to share, maybe we even do a 5-minute interview with you and we talk about something that's going on in your life. I'm looking for ways to engage the listener. I'm looking for ways to allow other people to tell their story if they don't have the voice or the means to. So with that said, please, in the show notes, you'll see the ways to get in touch with me. Don't be shy. Of course, we can keep your identity secret, or we can have a public discussion. Totally up to you. If that's not for you, again, and you want to just keep listening anonymously, I can't fault you for that. I deeply appreciate any time that you're committing to this show as a listener or a viewer or both. Okay, I would like to also say a few words on addiction. Addiction seems to be a topic that's really, really resonating based on how many downloads and how many views I'm seeing the episodes getting. Especially on YouTube, it seems like people are looking for ways to quit their addiction, quit their bad habit, quit their vices. And it's really interesting that we live in a time where you can now go online and get your problems solved, or at least get some thoughts about issues that you do have. Of course, I have to insert the caveat here that if you have a hardcore addiction to something like opiates, perhaps it's a decades-long alcohol addiction, I don't know that I can necessarily say anything to help you. Perhaps I can say something to make you think or to give you hope. I'm not sure about that, but I really do think that this show, or my experiences at least, specializes on softer addictions like overeating, pornography, marijuana, maybe alcohol use that's not completely out of control. Those sort of softer things that you might call them vices, where they're not running your life totally off the rails. They could, but it's by your own admission, by your own realization, these things are taking a toll on your life. And I use that phrase because the other day I was out with a friend of mine. We made a little campfire down by the river. Very romantic for two bearded men down by the river. And we get to talking. We throw some bacon on the grill. We smoke a cigar. We drink a few beers, and we get to talking. And I asked him, or he asked me actually, so how long has it been now since you quit smoking marijuana? And this was a friend of mine who we smoked weed, if not daily, at least multiple times a week for probably 5 years until we both just sort of grew out of it. And grew up, you might say. And he asked me, well, how long has it been now since you quit? And I said, well, 3.5 years really since I touched it. And I asked him, for himself, he said it was about that time as well. And I said, well, what made you want to quit finally? After it was such a huge part of both of our lives. And he said, it just started to take too much of a toll on my mind. And that lingered with me, and I thought about that. And so maybe now let's think about that in relation to your life and some bad habits or some vices that are taking over in your life. They're taking a toll on you. What does that mean? Well, you have to pay to use the road, right? You go through the toll booth, you pay the toll. You choose to put things in your body, in your mind, you're paying the toll. You're paying in many different ways for that brief freedom. And you might be paying with your money, you might be paying with your time, you might be paying with your health, you might be paying with, the way you look in the eyes of others, your social standing. You may have to live with shame, with guilt, with anger, resentment, all these things that come as a result of your choice to undertake this behavior, use these substances. And so I think that this is where self-reflection, like journaling or perhaps just walking and thinking or quiet time alone, some people use prayer as a way to reflect on themselves. This kind of reflection is useful. And you may be, if addiction, bad habit is an issue now, you may want to ask yourself, how much am I paying? What kind of a toll am I paying for this habit, for this vice? And you may say, well, okay, here's an example. I have a hard time socializing without booze, without drinking. Okay, well, you could actually mark that down in the pros column. We're going to say, I have a few drinks. It helps me speak. It helps me relate to people. I get over my shyness. I'm quick with a joke. People gravitate towards me when I am outgoing. Okay, but what about the cons? What are we paying now, right? We can say, sure, all these addictions, these bad habits, they are giving us something, some small thing, they do pay us in some way. What about the cons? Well, I don't form meaningful relationships without booze, right? All my buddies are really just drinking buddies. Well, hey, you might want to put that in the pros column, right? The pros and cons. On the pros side, at least you have some friends, but it's not uncommon, of course, to find that the relationships that we make while we're drinking are not really sustainable, meaningful relationships, at least outside of the drinking, right? Outside of all the beer talk. And you might say, well, those are my only friends. And it's like, well, then the drinking is not 100% all bad, but we're still paying the toll, right? I'm blowing all my money. I'm spending all my time. I'm always at the bar or I'm at the party or I'm thinking about liquor. My body is suffering, right? There's not too many things that are legal that are worse to put in your body than booze. It affects your digestion, affects your sleep, affects your skin, affects your internal organs. The list goes on and on. And the tendency, I think, is to say, oh, the addiction's bad and I need to change, right? Like, I know I'm an alcoholic. I know I drink too much. I know I lean on alcohol as a social crutch. I have to change. But you know what? That way of thinking about addiction, that way of thinking about life in general is what got us addicted in the first place. You realize, well, shit, I can't socialize. I'm shy. I'm clumsy with my words. People don't find me interesting. Now, instead of exploring those flaws that you so readily discovered in yourself, that what we call negational thinking, all these things that we're not, instead of pursuing how you might develop your own personal qualities, you chose to just accept them, take them for what they were. Look, there's these holes, these gaps in my personality, in my person, and I'm going to just fill those with something artificial. I'm not going to address them. I'm just going to plaster over them. So now, as I had to do with marijuana, with porn, with overeating, we have to double back past the addiction, past the bad habit that we so desire that we didn't do, past that crutch, past the booze, past the marijuana, past the overeating, go beyond that, go back to where you and I maybe should have stopped in the first place, to those holes in our personality, right? I said before, I used marijuana because I was a shy person. I didn't want to take on the challenges of social life. I didn't want to put myself out there. I didn't want to develop because I had my own misgivings about who I was. It's very easy just to get stoned and run away. But Rather than get stoned and run away, I realize now that was an invitation to say, well, what is it? What is it that makes me shy? What is it about myself I'm so ashamed of I can't go forward into the world and find the courage to address those? So that's where we have to begin, or at least that's where we have to go back and start again. Start paying yourself and stop paying the toll. You're shy, you can't speak well, you struggle socially. You owe it then to yourself to work on those things, to develop the personal qualities that you do have, to become confident in yourself and in your abilities. It's something like becoming your own storyteller. Find what's so unique about you, challenge yourself to become opinionated, challenge yourself to optimize these things that exist within you and bring those to bear on the world. This is what I wish I'd heard, or what I wish I'd had the wherewithal to realize 15 years ago. But I'm trying to say it now. I'm trying to say it to me. I'm trying to say it to you. In fact, addiction, these sort of soft, manageable addictions that we can get a hold of, they become an invitation to know ourselves more deeply, to seek what we really can be, to seek out who we really can be, not to run from the things we're ashamed of, the things that we so readily see as wrong with ourselves. It's like, okay, accept those. And, right, it's easy to say. It's easy to say, of course. But I'm now looking back with 2020 hindsight in the hopes that maybe it can help. Addiction and bad habits and vice, paying that toll to be free from the things that we do not like about ourselves, that's in fact an invitation to go back. Don't pay the toll, pull a U-turn. Seek out who you really can be. Don't run from the things that you're ashamed of. Go back and drive towards them. All those fears, those holes, that blackness, that emptiness in your soul, for whatever reason, those are doorways. They're doorways into your soul, and they lead to a better life. So again, thank you very much for listening to this podcast, for watching the episodes on YouTube, for being a part of this community that is growing. I'm going to leave it there for now. And thank you one more time, and finally remind you that better is possible.